This is Proxy Countdown. Welcome to the big show for the week of October 6th, 2025. Alongside my tag team partner, Matt Mascardi, I'm Damian Rawlis. On today's countdown, the silent female retreat, the not-so-secret power of the lead independent director, an aggressive activist atmosphere is heating up, a college professor in a bow tie gets voted out, and on the big vote, Matt talks surveys. Let's start with our trade wire. Here are all the noteworthy 8Ks since September 24th. And remember, this show generally covers the 600 largest market caps in the United States. So I'm looking at directors that come and go, that leave boards and are added to boards. How about this statistic? They added 22 men, but 7 men left. They added only 6 women, but 5 left. So basically a wash. Just about the same amount of women are added and going, but a plus 15 in men added. There has been this thing that we've been counting since last proxy season. I call this down to 2F, down to 2 women. Remember, the threshold used to be 3 women on the board was kind of where you wanted to be. That was a good starting place. Now we're actually getting into down to 1F. So at Fannie Mae, they're down to 2 women. Karin Kimbrough resigned. But how about these companies? At F&M BANK, Daphyne S retired. They're down to 1 female director. At Rocket Companies, Jennifer Gilbert resigned. In fact, they added 2 men, but they're sticking to 1 woman. And at Pitney Bowes, this is the second woman who has stepped down since July. This is Milena Alberti-Perez, and they're down to 1 female director. This is getting nuts, getting crazy.
Getting dire.
Yeah. Let's move over to some of the stupidities that I found. Mostly it's these classified boards. So they're like IDEXX Laboratories, they elected Karen Peacock. She's not up for election until 2027.
That must be nice.
At INQ, they appointed General John Raymond. The general is not up for election until 2028. And at Rocket Companies, they got 2 dudes, Bray and Tagar Olson. Bray is up for election in 2028, Olson in 2027. So there you go.
Nice long. What do you do for those years that you don't have to actually work before you get a vote?
Twiddle your thumbs. That's what they say.
Do you sit in the back of the room and just drink the coffee quietly?
How about this at F&M BANK? I don't think I've seen this one. So Daphyne S is stepping down because she reached the mandatory retirement age, but she's becoming an honorary director. I don't think I've heard this term. Not emeritus, an honorary director. She will continue to function as such until she tenders her resignation to the board, or until the board requests that she tender her resignation. And as an honorary director, she may attend board meetings but is not entitled to vote.
That is an emeritus director. That's what
right?
that is.
But she's an honorary director. I don't like that at all.
Not only that, and they basically saying she can't be fired, but the board can request that she resign, which is being fired. She can say anything she wants. She can harangue new directors. She can really pound the table with her iron fist. So I mean, she can't vote, but she can sway any vote that comes up. The nice part about this gig is, or the sad part is that she was forced to retire at the mandatory retirement age. What percentage of directors actually just avoid the mandatory retirement age at all? They just get waved in for another year or 2 until the board decides. She was forced to retire. That's kind of sad.
Sort of. How about this weird one at Disney? Sonia Coleman. She was the chief human resources officer. Now she's the chief people officer. They changed her title. What do you think is that meaningful?
It's
Disney.
Vulgar?
Let's not forget, it's Disney. People are mad at Disney. Chief Human Resources Officer to Chief People Officer. Any insight? I can't figure that one out.
Is she still an executive vice president?
Yes, and she's getting even a bit of a raise. I just don't really get it.
Maybe maybe human resources only involved humans, and now she has to deal with AI and robots
but
too.
People, just people, like AI people?
AI people, or maybe corporations.
That's a stretch.
It's very confusing.
CEOs, here's all the big news on CEOs. Comcast, Michael Kavanagh will be appointed co-CEO, along with the current CEO, who is now the co-CEO, and he's the chair, Brian Roberts. He's also the son of the Comcast founder, Ralph Roberts.
Yeah. So Brian Roberts owns the dual class shares, while Michael Kavanagh owns the non-class shares, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
I'm on Comcast's webpage today looking at Brian Roberts' very lengthy bio, including all the awards he's won and how much people love him. Nowhere does it mention his dad in that bio. Do you think that's fair?
I think he pulled himself up by his bootstraps when he was handed Comcast.
I just think you should mention your dad. People should know how he got the job. At Verizon, another lead independent director, this time it's Daniel Schulman, who used to be at PayPal. He's jumping right from lead director to the role of CEO at Verizon, replacing Hans Vestberg, a man that on this show you had a lot to say about his underwhelming performance at the board at BlackRock and I think at Verizon. So, Hans Vestberg out at Verizon, a lead director who they call independent, is now suddenly the CEO without any training period. He is just jumping right from a lead director role to the CEO role. How about that?
Look, I think we covered on this show not that long ago that lead independent director is a quiet insider, right?
Yes.
We did a whole review of lead independent directors and found that on average, I think their tenure is 14 years. I mean, you're talking about effectively insiders. I don't think there's another way to put it. They're just insiders.
Yeah, because in that scenario, typically it's because the role of CEO and chair has been combined. So really it is the number two. It's the number two, right? Right below the CEO.
They also tend to be on the board for
too long
years with that CEO chair combination.
That's true too. And if in fact might be the best pick for someone to succeed someone as CEO,
it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Yeah, you just look at the guy next to you and say, "Do you want the role?" Yeah.
All right, let's go over to money. We're looking at all the money from 8Ks over the last 2 weeks. Let's start with Norfolk Southern. A one-time cash retention to all named executive officers. They're all getting at least $2 million, up to $4 million for CEO Mark George. You don't see a lot of just cash, just a big briefcase of cash. Just cash.
I mean, do they have somebody who carries the briefcase of cash?
And remember, they didn't, they're still just doing their jobs. Cash.
It's cash.
The other big one of the week, we had a few like golden hellos, the new CFO at Pepsi, the new CEO at CSX, but this one really stands out. At Dell Technologies, a one-time, they always say one time. I'd actually like to look back at all these companies. I don't believe it's a one time. I think some of these are like four. This is the fourth time. But a one-time performance-based stock option award to COO. That's not even the CEO. COO Jeffrey Clark, valued at $132 million. How about that?
Well, the one-time part is this is the one time they've given him $132 million.
Okay.
Next year they'll give him $134 million.
And remember, these are the people, mostly the compensation committee, who are tasked to write pay policies that go in the proxy statements every year. So they couldn't figure out how to make his pay work as part of the actual pay policy. They actually had to make up something and add it on with Scotch tape, and so they're not really doing their jobs. That's my perspective. They're not doing their jobs well.
No, well, clearly not.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Okay, that's it for the news, the trade wire. Let's move over to our proxy cage matches. There's a few boring things going on. First of all, there's a lot of news about how activist investors have launched a record number of new campaigns. So we're up to 60 new campaigns in the third quarter. This is up from 36 last year. Year to date, nearly 191 campaigns targeting 178 companies, with activists securing 98 board seats, driving approximately 25 CEO departures. So I'm okay with all this, but again, my big beef. Why do we have to wait for the activist investors to come along for you to listen? Why?
I mean, clearly there's a view that a lot of people are underperforming, and we're waiting for an activist to tell us which ones.
And I'm not crapping on the activist investors. They're doing their job. They're looking at the data. They're looking at governance failures. They're asking for board change. Why aren't the regular investors doing this as well?
It's a fabulous question. We're going to get to it in the surveys a little bit.
Japanese game company Gung Ho Online Entertainment. This is an interesting one. This obviously has something to do with Japanese governance, something that we don't cover here a lot. Has rejected a proposal from activist investors to dismiss its longtime CEO, Kazuki Morishita. So during an extraordinary shareholders meeting held a couple of weeks ago, the activists push for two things. One, for the requirements for ousting an executive to be relaxed. I wish we had these in the United States. And for Morishita to be fired from his position as CEO. Now, the first proposal was accepted, but the attempt to remove the CEO failed. But I just wish we had this fun stuff in the United States. This is fantastic.
I mean, it's direct removal of the executive. That seems fun.
A couple other kind of proxy contests. Not really. We haven't gotten to the proxy contest phase yet. Going on at Workiva and Acadia Healthcare, but nothing huge going on. So let's jump over to our vote results table. We don't have a lot of meetings coming in from big cat companies. I saw 5 last week. FedEx. FedEx actually had a shareholder proposal asking for an independent board chair. 43% yes. That's good. That's pretty good.
That's a lot.
Should be a win. I hope they make that happen.
It should be more than 50%. I'm not sure what the other 57% were thinking, why they didn't need that.
How about this? 37% of investors at FedEx said no on pay. Again, a significant vote.
Let me guess.
Yeah, you know what the next thing is.
Yeah. Not a single pay member got less than 90%.
Listen to this compensation committee chair. There are 5 members. Chair Paul Walsh, 94% support. 4 other members: Sylvia Davila, 97% support; Susan Griffith, 98% support; Susan Schwab, we know the name Susan Schwab, 96% support; Amy Lane, 99.5% support.
You know, this is actually feels like one of those tricky things that these large mega cap companies will do, which is the man is the chair.
That's true.
But it's
Paul
stocked
Walsh.
with women.
Yeah.
And if you vote against pay members, you're voting against the diversity on the board, and you have an immediate conflict of interest with yourself because you want some level of viewpoint diversity on the board.
I don't like it. If you're going to hate pay, you got to hate somebody. You got to hate one of the architects of pay.
It's somebody's fault.
General Mills, the only other company to have any shareholder proposals. Really, nothing to say about director votes, nothing to say about pay votes other than FedEx. General Mills, again, I don't know if shareholders are just feeling a bit more excited this fall, but both of them did pretty well overall. Separate the board chair and seat roles got 36%. That's a win in my book. And regenerative agriculture practices within supply chain. You'd think that would do poorly. 27% yes. How's that possible?
Honestly, maybe they're just voting yes for every shareholder proposal that actually gets through the no action process.
And yet,
they just say yes to those.
And yet, average 97% support for all directors.
Oh, whew.
Okay. And finally, I got to cover this one. Brian Hemphill is a director at John Wiley and Sons. He is an accomplished individual. He is not only is he the only black man on the board there, but that's not the accomplishment. Well, I guess it is in some respects.
For some boards.
Yeah. Brian is the president of Old Dominion University. Only it's that's a big deal. He got but the bigger deal is they got voted off the board of John Wiley & Sons. 54% of the board of the investors said no. This is the guy they hate, not the people who were the architects behind the pay at FedEx that they voted against, but Brian Hemphill. Now, here's what how the board responded. The board, this is from the filing. The board concluded that the voting outcome reflected proxy advisory firm recommendations unrelated to Mr. Hemphill's individual performance or contributions.
That we know is true.
So they rejected his resignation. The board determined that Mr. Hemphill's continued service is the best interest of the company and its shareholders. Now, I'm a little torn here. Shareholders said no, so I think Hemphill should leave, but I do agree with the board that what a terrible guy to target. I don't understand it. You speculated that the reason why they voted against him, he's the chair of the governance committee, but that doesn't say why he should leave. He's only been on the board for 3 years, so it's not tenure. He listed in his bio on his current outside directorships are 8 things, but this is where it's unfair because this is not required disclosure. Many of these directors sit on every board in their neighborhood, including like the board of the Dunkin' Donuts Foundation. So Hemphill sits on things like Sunbelt Conference, Preston Hollow Community Capital, but only one thing that is actually supposed to matter, which is at another corporation that's, well, I don't even know. Is Greater Norfolk Corporation no? So none of these are actually publicly traded corporations. So does this count?
Other publicly traded boards. He sits on a number of community boards.
Okay, but I didn't think that ISS and Glass Lewis considered these to actually matter.
I think what they did was count what
they
was
counted
disclosed.
Wrongly?
I don't think that they were looking for public boards. I think they just counted boards. And
I've never seen that.
They do have a rule.
I've never seen
that is no more than like 7 boards overall or something like that.
Affiliate boards like this, nonprofit boards?
But this would be like me listing that I'm on the PTO and ISS saying that's way too much for you to do.
But they're not required to do this disclosure. Do we even know that all the directors equally and fairly disclosed where they...
No, we know for sure they don't because we have a database of nonprofit affiliations, and we know for sure that they don't list most of those affiliations. We pulled them direct from IRS filings. That was the only way to get that data. So we know for sure that these are not readily disclosed. We speculate that it is an overboarding vote against. That was the proxy advisor recommendation, which you are correct. The reason to be torn here is it looks like the recommendation from proxy advisors was vote against him because he's overboarded, and it looks like investors listened to that recommendation in the same way they listened to the Jay Hogue recommendation at Netflix and voted against him on the Netflix board. Both boards rejected that because Hogue was about attendance and this is about overboarding.
Well, the Netflix thing I don't agree with. I don't agree with Netflix. This one I actually agree with John
neither of which
Wiley &
have to
Sons.
do with actual performance of the director. Now, in Hogue's case, there was a performance reason to vote him out. When you look at his performance on other boards and on the Netflix boards.
Yeah, and he'd been voted out in the past.
And this is the second time he'd been voted out. He is super long tenured. He's been there since the IPO of Netflix. Like, he is basically an insider. In this case, despite the fact that 54%, I think if investors vote you out, you have to leave, no matter what the reason is. That's the point of that democracy. But also, there is no good reason here. In fact, we did the math, and we found that 0.2% of directors get voted out annually. S&P 500 directors, about 12% of them are black. That means the probability that the spin the wheel ISS Glass Lewis, Wheel of Fortune points to a black man to be voted out is 1 in 4,600. That's the chances, because they're almost never voted out ever. You have actually almost the exact same probability of getting struck by lightning as this happening in particular. In this case, I kind of have to side with Wiley.
I got it.
Yep. You kind of have to side with them.
Let's not forget another important thing. John Wiley and Sons is a company that specializes in academic publishing.
Yeah,
Brian Hemphill is the president of Old Dominion University. He's only been on the board for 3 years. He's the only black man. He's relatively young for a board at 55 years of age. I mean, what? Come on, ridiculous!
It's bananas.
Ridiculous.
It's a little, but you're right. I'm totally torn because investors said no. It doesn't matter if investors are idiots.
They should maybe then he should leave the board for a year. Then they should renominate him the next year. I don't know what they should do, honestly.
If they renominate him next year,
Glass Lewis, if it's you, you're dopey. You're dopey.
Yeah. The real problem is that proxy advisors aren't using any real data except checking the box of how many boards did they disclose, not how many are relevant, but how many did they disclose.
But that's not required disclosure. You cannot compare apple to apples. You cannot do it with that. You are required to disclose the current directorships at publicly traded companies, but none of this other nonsense like Hampton Roads Biomedical Research Consortium. I mean, God forbid he spends his time doing that, but that's not required disclosure.
The fabulous part about this is CEOs, if you read their bios, they actually disclose a number of nonprofits they're on the board of, but they didn't disclose it in a set of bullet points. So a CEO, if you're like Tim Cook and you sit on the board of like the Boys and Girls Club and you sit on the board of like your local PTO and you list them in your bio, that guy is significantly busier as the CEO of Apple.
You think?
Than this guy, Brian Hemphill.
You don't know
on the board of Wiley and Sons.
More importantly, Matt. More importantly,
it's nuts.
He's got a nice smile and he has a really nice yellow bow tie. I'm offended by this.
Yeah, that's what they should have considered.
Before I hand it over to I don't know what you did this week. You looked at a bunch of surveys. That's what you did.
Yeah.
Next week. Not a lot going on in the big votes. Procter & Gamble, that's the biggest one. They're the only one, too, with a shareholder proposal. The shareholder proposals are just dead. Like, they seem to have gone away.
Good.
As You Sow has one about plastic packaging.
Okay.
Give me a prediction.
Vote for it.
Give me a prediction. What do you think that's going to come in at? Give me a prediction.
23%.
I'm going to write that down. I'm going to check that later. All right, that's all I got. For the big vote. Matt, what do you got?
All right. It's survey season.
Okay.
This is the time of the year because the voting hasn't started in earnest in the U.S., where all the consultants and data providers are sending out surveys to a variety of people saying, what are you planning on doing? What's important to you going into this season? So they can generate some content around it and prove their worth. Well, we looked at the surveys that came out in the last 2 weeks. That includes PwC's Board Effectiveness Survey, something that they actually do every single year. That one actually came out in August, where they surveyed executives at companies about boards. We've talked about
some
that
of whom are on
already.
the boards themselves. Some of them are on the boards.
There was a survey of directors, also by PwC.
Okay.
This is their annual corporate directors survey. It came out last week.
Two different surveys. Okay.
2 different surveys. So they surveyed executives about the boards. They surveyed directors about directors. And they surveyed Morningstar actually surveyed asset owners, the Voice of the Asset Owner Survey 2025. These are investors, pension funds, and like superannuation funds and like big investors.
This seems like
surveyed them.
Giving surveys. This seems like an easy job. I want that job. You ask people stuff.
Yeah, you just write up some questions, you send them an email, and then you get the answers back, and you make a bar chart.
I like this.
So they surveyed about 500 NEOs. All were NEOs for the executive survey.
Okay.
The biggest rep was in tech and media.
These are all American NEOs.
These are largely American NEOs. Okay. All of these were actually they had some global touch, but it was largely American. Mostly mid and large cap companies. 35% mid, 26% large. The director survey, there were 600 directors surveyed, mostly mid and large cap. Again, 33% mid, 37% large. Mostly men, 65% were male. The executives did not give a demographic breakdown of the executives. None of that.
Well, we know that's mostly men too. Has to be.
The directors were not asked this year about their race or ethnicity. That was not a question.
We don't do that anymore.
Probably because if like one of them said like I'm Hispanic woman, there's only like one person it could be, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
you figure out who
that's
it was,
true.
right?
Yeah.
They were mostly longer tenured, 6+ years. 56% had been on a board for 6+ years.
So these are people who know. They know what's going on.
They know what this is like. They've been on boards for a while. That's actually an interesting cohort. The asset owners, there were 500 asset owners surveyed with $19 trillion in assets. So that's a big set of asset owners.
Sounds big.
Mostly EU and APAC overall, but 20% were in the U.S. and they were big U.S. owners, and mostly had between 1 and 100 billion in assets. So a big range in assets, but in the billions for the most part. Okay, we're gonna play a little bit of a game here. I'm gonna have you guess some of these answers, and we'll see what the surveys say. Okay. Here's a question that these are all questions that were effectively either asked on all the surveys or some approximation on all the surveys. Here's a survey question. How important is voting out a director? What do you think? Effectively, they're saying like, should someone leave? Is it important to get rid of directors? What do you think? What was the executive answer? And you know this one already.
Well, this is an anonymous survey.
These are anonymous surveys.
I don't know the exact figure. My assumption would be that the executives themselves would think this is more important than the directors because there might be some conflict, right? I mean, they might hate some of the directors because they're providing a counterbalance to their jobs and maybe they're just irritated by them.
Well, so 93% of executives. That's
essentially it's all of them.
That's all of them said at least one director should be replaced.
Okay, yeah.
And 78% said 2 or more.
So nearly all of them.
All of them say 1. Nearly all of them say 2 or more.
Which suggests that okay. It is interesting with the executives because it makes me wonder if they just don't like them, or they're getting pushed back too much by them, or we don't know why they don't like them. We don't know why they don't like them, right? Or do we?
We'll come back to that.
Okay,
there are some answers to that.
Okay.
Some directors themselves.
This is the more interesting one to me.
55%.
Yeah.
Think at least one director should be replaced.
So that means that more than half of the board knows that there are other directors who they just suck, right? They
should not be there.
They should not be there. That's the definition of sucking.
And nearly 1 in 10 directors think that more than 2 directors should be gone. Not 2, but more than 2.
And I wonder,
3, 4, 5.
I wonder with all these surveys is that sometimes even though they tell you it's anonymous, I think that people are a little reticent to actually speak the truth. So I bet you these numbers are actually higher.
Most surveys they err on the side of conservatism. Right?
Yeah, because when
MSCI
they
don't say it.
The last corporation I worked for was MSCI. When they used to ask me stuff, especially and tell me it was anonymous, I wasn't too sure.
It's not.
I wasn't exactly saying anything that I thought could get me in trouble. Let's just say that.
Which brings us to investors themselves.
Okay.
Now remember, these are asset owners, and this number shocked me. 35% of asset owners in Morningstar's 2025 asset owner survey, the voice of the asset owner, 35% of them, 1 in 3, basically, said they voted at all in either direction, or against directors.
So they just didn't vote.
They just don't vote at all.
So they get the proxy and they just they recycle it.
They outsource the vote. They basically hand it to BlackRock.
Oh, so someone's voting.
You do it.
Someone's voting.
But they give no guidance, right? Like they just say, whatever, you vote it. I don't care.
Yeah. And that
they
means
effectively don't care.
Now, is this the entire proxy or this is just for directors? They don't vote on directors.
This was the entire proxy.
Oh, okay. So
they don't do any of it.
They just don't care.
They just don't
not
care
interested.
At all. And to put that in perspective, that vote rate, that voter turnout rate is roughly the same as Syria, the country of Syria.
Okay.
In fact, Iraq and Iran have higher voter turnouts.
What does this have to do with the Middle East exactly?
Well, I just was looking at voter
looking at
turnout globally, right? Like when you look at the math, it's like Chad and Congo had higher turnouts.
Yeah.
Like it's places with low turnout.
Chad, I've talked to Chad. He likes to vote. Yeah.
He does vote a lot. Here's another question. Are your boards any good?
Okay.
Are they any good?
Yeah.
Is there any good at their job? Okay?
I like this. I like these surveys.
Now, I'm paraphrasing, like, because they all ask that question in a more tactful way to get to an answer, or they ask a version of that question. Executives, 35% of executives rated their boards as excellent or good. So 1 in 3.
That doesn't seem like very good.
That's not very high.
No.
That means the majority of them think their boards are not good.
Or under good, yeah.
Less than good.
Less than good, yeah.
In fact, IT executives thought their boards were the straight up worst.
Well, hey, I might agree with this because we were something I shout about all the time is like, how do you have no one who has any expertise in cybersecurity, as an example?
Well, 40% said that their boards were poor.
Yeah,
straight poor. They didn't even like mince words. They
you look at some of these chuckleheads
said just poor
on these tech boards. It's like a lot of like money bros. It's like VC bros. Like that's not going to help anyone. Like where's their expertise?
It's not useful. What do you think the directors had to say about whether the boards were any good?
Well, you said that half of them think that at least one person should be replaced. So maybe half. I don't know, half think they're good.
So 68%. They didn't ask this question directly. They asked it in this sort of backwards way. But here's what they said: 68% of directors said they had an effective assessment process of their board.
Okay.
Meaning, nearly 7 in 10 directors thought they were doing a good job assessing whether the board was good.
Aren't a lot of these, though, unfortunately, aren't they self-assessment process? Isn't it a self-assessment?
They're all self-assessments. Not
because investors aren't. They're not involved. They're not voting, so they're not assessing anything.
In fact, 34% of directors think that the chair or lead director is very effective in dealing with underperforming directors.
Oh.
So 1 in 3 think that the chair is doing an amazing job dealing with underperformers, and 7 in 10 think that their assessment process is amazing.
Why are there underperforming directors in the first place?
It's because there's underperformers on every team.
That's true.
Any team, you've got an underperformer everywhere. Yeah. Like there's no one who's like, even the Pats in their like golden era run, they had like terrible players.
There were people to cut. Yeah,
we almost went to the Super Bowl with Rashay Caldwell as wide receiver. Like,
you're completely off track.
Investors.
You've never been more off track than that last statement.
How about investors?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Only 35% of investors said board composition was even material.
Okay, but that's the same amount of percentage that voted.
Right. So the ones that are voting effectively might be voting on the directors.
Yeah.
Everyone else thinks the board isn't even material. Who's on the board isn't even material. Much less worrying about how effective those boards are. They don't even think it's material to have.
So why do we have these boards? Why are we paying them? What are we doing?
Excellent question. Investors don't seem to care. Then. 1 in 3 investors basically said, it's 1 in 3 investors said it was material, meaning 2 in 3 said it wasn't material at all.
Yeah,
to their decision making.
Stupid. Well, that's lack of creativity, lack of imagination, lack of due diligence.
As to culling underperformers.
Ooh, I like this. This is one of my favorite things.
So we'll jump right to investors first because we already know 35% don't even bother, right? Like,
no, I thought you said only 35% voted.
35% are doing 35% are doing voting at all.
2/3 are doing nothing.
2/3 aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
The average vote for a director is 96% in favor, and 0.2% of directors are voted out annually.
So of those who vote, they really still don't care.
They still don't care, right? Like it doesn't even matter if they are voting or not voting. They're voting for every single director.
They have a big yes rubber stamp.
Correct.
They dip it in their ink and they just shove it on the proxy.
And it's pounding it on the desk. Yes. It's like a library card.
Yes. It's like yeah.
There's somebody whose arm is really tired from pounding on the yes stamp. So we can ignore them entirely. Executives, though, 50% of executives feel confident a board will remove an underperformer.
Why?
While 93% of executives say that at least one director should be axed, only 50% think their board will do it.
Well, this does suggest to me that some of the confidence must come from the fact that they know that since the CEO's off in the chair, and the CEO's almost always on the board, especially in the U.S., that I think they're really suggesting that the CEO is in charge, and that the CEO, we know, and half the time we're going to get rid of you because we don't like you. Right? Is that what they're suggesting?
I think it sounds to me like 93% of executives say at least one director should be replaced means that they're looking at their board and they're like, there's Gary definitely needs to go.
Gary's a dope.
And the way that they feel confident that the board will do it is because they go to talk to the CEO chair, who says, "Yeah, Gary's no
like
good.
Gary.
He's only got a year or two left on this board.
Yeah.
We'll get rid of him. Don't worry. He's going to resign soon." Right?
Gary's questioning the audit process too much. He's asking too many questions. Yeah.
But think of that loop, right? Is there a single investor involved in that loop? Right now, it's in executives saying like Gary sucks, and the executive on the board saying, "I agree, Gary needs to resign. We'll get rid of him eventually."
This is what troubles me and why investors need to get involved more, because I still don't know why executives have determined that someone should leave the board. Because again, could they be asking too many of the right questions? Is that why they want them out? I don't know.
And as I said, only 1 in 3 directors actually think that the chair or lead director is very effective in dealing with underperforming directors. That was the lowest of the options. So 1 in 3 directors actually.
Let's not forget that a lot of these chairs and lead directors have been on the board for far too long, often over a decade, alongside a CEO and a founder. And so they might be too scared or too friendly with the CEO to help underperforming directors.
Perfect segue, because the next question is, why aren't we cutting directors?
All right, this I want to
Why
hear.
do they not get cut? Okay, so we know that investors don't really vote, and the ones that do don't cut anybody. So there's not a good reason why, but I will tell you, 52% of investors that do vote on shareholder resolutions. So what I think the missing piece is here is investors don't care about directors at all, but they do care. When they care about shareholder resolutions. So maybe if there was a shareholder resolution that said, do a report on individual director assessments, they might actually approve a report that says individual directors are underperforming. Then they might care if it came in the form of a shareholder proposal.
Well, at least those 35% you mean might care?
The 35% that do vote.
That vote.
All right. Executives, 57% of executives said board leadership is unwilling to have difficult conversations with underperforming directors.
That's a lot.
That's what you just said. They're afraid.
And that also suggests that these boards are full of people within their own networks, their friends, their colleagues. And the reason why they're afraid and why they're even calling them difficult conversations is because they don't want to upset their buddy. Right?
And it turns out that this checks out because 27% of directors said that as part of the assessment process, they do individual assessments. So basically 3/4 of directors are saying we don't do individual assessments, and almost 2/3 of boards, 57%, almost 60% of board or executives are saying. 50%, 48% said individual director assessments are not performed, meaning nobody knows how the directors are actually performing because no one's doing actual assessments of directors.
And this is the fallacy of the meritocracy, I believe, because what we've proven is that the people who come from outside the network are overqualified, highly qualified. We know that they're there for the right reason, that they're probably doing a good job. It's the people, it's the friends that don't get called out. It's and they don't often have the merit. They're just part of a network. They're like a phone call away, and they're probably the ones who are not being assessed or are underperforming. So it's a problem.
Well, it's a pretty easy action item here. Do individual assessments.
Yeah,
just do those
and disclose them.
And disclose them.
Hey, you're making that much money for that little work. Shareholders have a right to know. Anyway, I mean, as we pointed out a million times, a bench player for a basketball team gets scrutiny. Her stats get published.
Published everywhere.
They get asked questions by the media. You should not only perform these assessments, but you should disclose them in the proxy statements.
All right, here's one more thing that I thought was good about the directors themselves. And it's basically what makes a sucky director. Because there were some reasons why.
Yeah, I want to know this.
Obviously not for investors. Only 14% of asset owners actually find it very useful to do stewardship. 14% is abysmally low.
Yeah.
And they included voting proxies in that. 14% thought it was very useful to vote proxies. 16% said they didn't know if it was useful.
Well, these are honest.
I'm not kidding. That is an actual survey answer.
Yeah. I believe them.
Meaning, like, they have no idea whether or not their votes actually matter at all. Like, what are we doing? So we can exclude them at all. Executives said, in no particular order, advanced age, overboarding, long tenure, and not being prepared for meetings.
Well, it's funny.
Were the major reasons for underperformance. That's what made them suck.
Because those first three things are all things that have come from the corporate governance revolution, the ESG movement. So they are listening to some things. So I don't know why they're not listening to more things, just those three things. The fourth thing is fascinating because that information I would love to know. I don't know.
That seems like the most relevant thing.
I mean, now some of these directors are making, close to $1 million a year in equity and cash, and some of them are getting sign-on bonuses. Why won't you if you're telling us how many meetings they go to, why can't you tell me if you think that this guy or this woman is unprepared for the meeting? I don't know. Who are we protecting? I don't understand. Why are we protecting these people? I don't get it.
Well, here's a great follow-up on the executives, because when asked what the board chair, the coaching that a board chair should give to an underperforming director, the executives, 36% of executives said that the board chair should coach directors who are not actively participating in discussions, and 33% of executives said that they should coach directors who were dominating discussions.
This is nuts. This is stuff you're supposed to deal with like in high school, like how to talk in a group setting, how to make your voice heard, how to let others participate, how to listen.
But it paints a very vivid picture, which is effectively there are large portions of boards that are not participating in discussions, and there are a few dominant voices in the room, and the executive thinks the board chair is supposed to be stopping them. Or lead independent director when the CEO is the chair.
Well, again, when the board chair is the CEO, we know that the CEO has a way different agenda going on. The agenda might be that I hit a certain target so I get my bonus. The agenda might be that I just keep my job for 2 more years. The agenda might be that I accomplish this task that I'll look better for this other company and they'll hire me away. I don't know what the CEO's agenda is. The CEO should not be the chair of their own board ever, never.
The fabulous cross-reference here that they don't tell you is the CEO who is chair one of the dominant voices that the lead independent director is supposed to tell to shut up?
Yeah,
right?
Let me think.
Meanwhile, directors themselves said that what makes a sucky director is if they did not meaningfully contribute to discussions and if they had long tenure.
So why do we see so much? Why do we see so much long tenure on these boards?
So that's the question.
Yeah.
They basically, both executives and directors have basically given you some parameters of what they think is no good on their boards. People who have been there too long and people who do not meaningfully contribute to discussions, either because they're too loud and they don't let anybody else contribute, or they don't participate themselves.
And by the way,
that's pretty simple.
By the way, as someone who has gone to high school, gone to college, got a master's degree, someone who has chaired boards under parliamentary order, with the way they chair boards in like countries like Canada or whatever, it is absolutely the job of the chair and or the lead director to get everyone on that board to give meaningful contributions at every meeting. If someone is dominating or if someone is too quiet,
tell them to be quiet.
The chair has the power and authority to affect that. So, if anything, I'm now thinking like this is all suggesting that the chairs themselves are under effective and not performing well, right?
I mean, they're responsible for all of these things.
Yes, they are absolutely responsible. You don't blame the kid in the class for not speaking up. The teacher has a role in making sure everyone participates in a classroom.
And when the CEO is the chair, that is immediately a massive problem, and because it only furthers all these things. It also suggests to me that if directors and executives largely agree on some of these things, and the CEO is the chair of the company, the CEO running their own company probably has the same problems. They probably dominate discussions, and they don't let executives talk.
Yeah.
I mean, they're effectively telling you. If you knew which companies they were, they're effectively telling you these assholes don't let anybody else participate or keep their friends around too long.
The two most important things I think facing the corporate governance world right now are that everything should be one chair, one vote, and CEOs should not be chairs of their own. I think those are the two things that we need to eradicate immediately. Honestly,
I think there's a third thing, and that is. Investors need to vote.
I know. Look,
do the vote.
No, look, I have a list of 20 things I would change. I'm just saying, to me, that the two most important things are those.
So that was the bulk of the surveys.
Okay.
There were a couple other things that I thought were interesting, including executives were asked what they thought boards should spend more time on, and 50% of them said ESG.
Okay.
That's right out of the survey.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me because, again, a lot of these boards are they're backloaded with 3 VCs, 3 CFOs. It's like there's just not enough variety. There's not enough flavor. You know what I mean?
34% of directors themselves said that their plan was to add more industry expertise to the board, which would suggest that 1 in 3 boards don't have enough industry expertise.
That's terrible.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Again, you don't want your buddy. You want someone who understands the industry.
And meanwhile, the investor survey, and this is a Morningstar problem as much as it is the investor problem. The investor survey spent a lot of time on AI and climate change. In the survey, there were multiple questions about climate transition, AI, all the things that are top of mind.
The two things that might destroy humanity, basically.
The investor answer for the number 1 ranked material issue out of every issue in the survey, where they didn't ask a single follow-up question. They asked about AI and climate change, but the number 1 ranked material issue, and it's the number 1 ranked material issue every year they've done the survey, is business ethics. 68% of asset owners agreed that is the most important issue.
Oh, that's bad.
And there's not a single follow-up question in any of the surveys about business ethics what boards are doing about it, how they're voting on it, how it's managed, what the process should be. It's just ethics.
Well, look, and we see in the backgrounds of the people who are on these boards, there are very few people qualified to who have backgrounds in things like business ethics.
I mean, business ethics is board composition, right? Like that is directly speaks to who is running the company. This is the fascinating part to me. Every single one of the asset owner issues, like the things they thought were material, were a question of who's going to manage that? That should be the immediate follow-up question. Like, who's managing that? And they don't seem to think at any point that the boards are material, but they do seem to think that business ethics are material. Well, whose fault is it if this is not an ethical company, if they do something unethical or illegal?
to take it back to John Wiley and Sons, absolutely why it would be so important for boards to have people like presidents of universities on their boards, right? I mean, you do want people who represent things like ethics. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think there's a one-size-fits all, but I do think we should be asking the question who at a bare minimum, right? Like who's going to do it? So there was one other tidbit that I thought was interesting, which was only 15% of executives think the board has sufficient gender, racial, ethnic diversity. That was shocking to me.
But we don't know what that means, right? They might think there are too many women. Is that what right?
I don't. I think they.
You think it's the opposite? They think there's too many men, too many white men.
I think they think there's too many white men.
That's incredible, really. Only because we know that by and large, most executives are white men.
Meanwhile, 25% of directors themselves thought they could improve the board by seeking more diverse viewpoints.
Well, this is just
literally
obvious, of course.
Directors don't think they need any more diversity, and executives are saying you guys are woefully non-diverse.
Oh, so you're saying that a low number of directors thought they could improve the board by seeking more?
25%, that's 1 in 4 directors thought they needed more diverse viewpoints, but 85% of executives said, no, you need more diversity. You need more diverse viewpoints.
But one is dealing with demographical diversity. One is dealing with viewpoint diversity.
That's because at this point, we're not really asking questions about diversity anymore. We're too scared to ask about like race and ethnicity.
Because of our
we ask about
orange racist president. We're scared. Yeah, okay.
So there are a couple action items that are obvious. Clearly, executives want you to vote out their directors. Clearly, directors also want you to vote them out.
They're begging you to weed us out. Weed us out.
Please vote out directors. They're asking you to do it.
They really are.
It's not too aggressive when all the surveys suggest that's what they want you to do.
Well, I think it's healthy in any environment. I mean, any team environment, you're always moving forward with you cut a few, you add a few. It's healthy. It's just the way you do it.
It also means the second action item is to stop obsessing over shareholder proposals. You don't. The problem is people. It isn't a proposal. It isn't you don't have enough reports. It is that you don't have anything. You're not doing anything about the people running the company. The last 2 action items are pretty simple. Start looking at the skills of the directors because there are a number of questions.
Start disclosing more skills too. By the way,
there were a number of questions about how like companies are underskilled, and it didn't have to do with AI. It had to do with they didn't have enough industry experience. They didn't understand the long-term risks facing an industry. The question about ESG suggests they want directors who understand long-term strategic exogenous risk. That's what they want.
Honestly, here's the failure of, we're talking about ISS and Glass Lewis before. The failure of places like ISS and Glass Lewis is they should be coming up with a system that helps evaluate the skill sets of these directors and then publishes
like free flow analytics.
But publicly discloses it. Maybe even it lobbies to get it as part of the proxy statements. Make assessments, publish the assessment. Don't just charge for these. I mean, this is all information that needs to be disclosed and investors need to know.
And as a corollary to that, don't stop asking about AI skills on the board. AI by itself is not the thing.
Cybersecurity, yes. AI, no.
But it's so myopic to ask about like AI or like start asking about long-term exogenous risk, not just AI. You want to know all the risks. And you want directors who know the industry well enough that they can see risks coming 5, 7, 10 years down the line. One of those is AI, obviously. But if you just focus on what are you guys doing about AI, then you're only focusing on whatever's hot right now and not what the big risks are later.
Money maker.
That's what the survey said to me. That's all I got.
Whew, this is supposed to be a short show. You got anything else?
Oh, God.
Thank God. That's the Proxy Countdown for the week of October 6th, 2025. Join us maybe not next week. We're kind of on a bi-weekly schedule. When we jump back into the alternative democracy pool, forever on the lookout for shareholder shenanigans, dopey directors, scandalous CEO pay ratios, and wayward band-aids. I don't know.
Gross.